That's how we feed them at programs. So, all head on a big body. So instantly we know it's not an owl. Easy to tell hawks from owls. The same holds true for eagles and vultures. They have small heads compared to their big bodies.
What kind of hawk was that?
That was a red-shouldered hawk, which is possible to see here in Maine for sure. There it is, kind of focusing the sound right into the owl's ear, right here. And the owl's ear, by the way, is hidden under these feathers. And you're going to get to see an owl's ear today. We're going to great gray owl that I photographed. So if you handle them, you may want to wash your hands before you pick up your sandwich for lunch. Otherwise, you might be coughing up an owl pellet in 2 or 3 hours. So, you know, use good hygiene. They do have bacteria, but we tear them apart by hand all the time. This is a nice, complete skull of a little rodent called a meadow vole, densely found in Maine, but it's widespread. And you can tell it's a great horned owl by black and yellow eyes, large ear tufts, and large size. It's a successful owl. It's found all across the United States, in every state except Hawaii. And this picture was taken in California, in a cliff, where this great horned owl looks like it really liked to sit for days on end. Red-tailed hawk nest. They don't build their own nests. They use the old nests of other birds. So they'll use a hawk's nest, an eagle's nest. In this case, it's a crow's nest. This is an old crow's nest. Yes. And if you really get too close, they'll raise their feathers up, kind of do a rocking display, a threat display. But notice the weasel is white, which in the winter is a great advantage if there is snow on the ground. But I've seen some winters where there's no snow and these things stick out like a sore thumb. Looks different. It has dark eyes and rounded head. No ear tufts on the head. And they hunt using a technique called perch and pounce. This one's coming down on blue. Yeah, they're blue. These owls, when they're first hatched out, have cataracts. They have blue eyes, clouded lenses. And then in Massachusetts, particularly on the coast, there's actually probably in Massachusetts more than 100 snowy owls right now. In Maine, I wouldn't even hazard a guess, but I bet you it's probably that or more. Bad feeling in your little mousy stomach, because this is the look of a hungry owl whose asymmetric ears can hear your heartbeat, catch you in its talons, transfer you to its beak, snap your neck with its beak, rip your head off, swallow your head, and then swallow your body. And you have just become a Maine meal. You're down here getting digested.
Gloves, of course, because they have very sharp claws called talons, right? And as Mark mentioned, the only way we can have any of these birds. Mark, did we tell them how big our family is?
You're up for it?
You game for that?
Round of applause for Jada.
Special seat over here for you. And since these are fresh out of the owl pellets, not sterilized like the ones you might take apart, and you have the gloves available, would you help us maintain our collection?
So Jada would be the curator of the pellets.
Yeah, and if you said we brought both colors of screech owls. So I'm going to handle the red one. And Mark, do you want to, we got a nice wet one here. Oh, and Mark, it's still got mucus on it.
Oh, mucus.
Yeah, jowl. But then again, in the winter, we give them a little bit bigger mice. Help them stay warm. All of these birds live outside. And kind of get them to face you. We'll get those little ear tufts up. But are they ears? No, they're not ears. They're just feathers. Used for mood expression and perhaps camouflage. And screech owls are great. They just kind of sit here and accept their fate. You know, here's the gray one. Let's get the ear tufts up on you. Oh, don't touch my ear tufts, okay? All right, so here we are. They usually make a whinnying sound. Gloves, so if you can just kind of dab that over.
This far north in Maine. I mean, to the south we get more of them for sure, but they kind of peter out this far up into the state. They're not a cold weather hardy bird, really. They don't really like harsh, long, tough winters like we have in northern Maine. So you got to see more of them down in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and then on down south. But these little guys are permanent residents. They don't migrate, and they come in two colors, as you can see. This bark-colored gray, in that feisty, foxy red color that Marcia has. They eat insects, they eat earthworms, rodents, and they do
or by traffic of some kind, and some nice person like yourselves came along, rescued them. The little red one here was found in Bolton, Mass., and he was brought to Tufts Wildlife Clinic, and they realized that he had a fractured clavicle, just like our collarbone, and they gave him medical attention, and then when he healed, but he just can't fly strongly enough. So he's at least 11 years old.
Wow.
Who knows how old he was when he was rescued. The screech owl that Mark is holding was just rescued last themselves, and he sits in, not a lot, but when he first comes out, this is what he does. So he kind of, oh, let's see. Oh, this is a beautiful feather. It's got a heart on it.
And then where does that come from? What part of the body?
Maybe they have sometimes
See the heart shape?
feathers that have, sort of a chevron on it. Sometimes it's rounded. Yeah. Well, thank you. So the barn owl gets its name from the bars that go from shoulder to shoulder. Now, the left shoulder is drooping because he has a broken left wing, which just couldn't be repaired.
Huck? Like Huck Finn?
No.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
You asked. Okay.
Is that your whole name? Is that short for something?
Short for something.
Is it short for Huckleberry? What's it short for?
First was right.
Hold back one of his facial discs and let you look in the left ear. But
So that's a big chunk of land, and for the winter, and they may have to find another nest. So, like an eagle's nest lasts 2 or 3 years, but other birds' nests don't, like a crow's nest, wouldn't survive usually a winter, more than one winter. So, they usually have to move around within that territory. Yeah. They do. They do by hooting. Yeah, that's what hooting's all about. How many eggs do they lay?
he is on the small side.
These guys, the barn owls, would lay generally anywhere from 2 to 4. And I say 2.
We're getting a comment over here. He seems a little small. Did we talk about the weight?
We mentioned that the females weigh more. He is small. He is a small barn owl.
Yeah.
And the fact that his wing is kind of not laying in there naturally maybe changes his shape a little bit.
But how much do you think he weighs?
We already...
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Pound and a quarter.
I wasn't paying attention.
Well, we can see who was listening. How much does he weigh?
We were busy.
Most of these other owls are silent at programs. Outside, different story.
We used to have a great horned owl, and he would hoot at every program. Well, I mean, we still have him, and we still use him, but he stopped hooting. We would now see, she'll remember that it's up there.
When you think about it, it's pretty unusual and pretty weird that you bring an animal out into a room with other, it's golden colored with black spots. If it was a male, it would be white with black spots. It wouldn't have that gold. So,
I mean, this is all
she was
trained
hatched in
to do.
captivity also. It's just that she's a little less social. She's more aloof. But she's calm. I mean, she's not struggling or anything. Yes?
So you mentioned the owls are at least most of them are 10 or 15 years old. How long do owls live generally in the wild versus in captivity?
How long can they live in the wild? Well, obviously, captivity is longer. In captivity, a screech owl could go 20. In the wild, I bet you they go 5.
But right on that ridge, you can kind of see a bone-colored beak down near the bottom of her face. And that's where her beak is. She probably won't let me touch her beak. Yeah, she doesn't like to be touched.
She doesn't want to be touched.
But, if you'll get to see other mouths before we're done.
Yes.
So if we come across an owl in the wild and it's hurt, so what do we do?
Okay, you find an injured owl next to the road, which means it's probably been hit by a car. If it's not dead, which oftentimes they do get killed, you can try rescuing it by picking it up and placing it into a, hopefully if you have a cardboard box, or wrapping it. What was the other one's story?
And really beautiful tiger-like markings down under here, and a distinctive four-note hoot that goes. Let's all try that. And then maybe back in the woods you might hear a higher one.
You say, what the?
Yeah, and that's called duet. It's oftentimes hooting between a bonded pair. I just like to have both of her eyes. I mean, her left eye is missing, obviously. But
You just like to hoot.
well, I just like they sometimes laugh when I move her head around.
Yeah, she was found on the forest floor, down on the forest floor with her eye punctured out near Mount Wachusett in Massachusetts. Someone rescued her, brought her to Tufts Wildlife Clinic, and the punctured eye eventually had to be removed. And so with one eye she'd have a hard time hunting. And luckily, you know, someone did rescue her, because had she just been left in the woods, she would have probably starved, or that punctured eye would have gotten infected. Yes?
What might have done that?
We don't know what happened, but she could have flown into something, like a branch, or maybe some prey scratched her, fought back. Hard to say. But, you know, sometimes owls do fly into branches at night. They don't have perfect vision at night. You know, they still sometimes can hit things or crash through things. So, yes, yes.
Hello.
Is there a different hoot for they can be territorial? So they can be like advertising to the next courtship, or if they're feeding babies and things like that.
Right back there.
Okay.
Yeah. Question, young man here.
Give me the sign. He'll come down in a moment. Yeah, there we go. So this is the owl that's taken Maine by storm. There's lots of these in the state right now. And as we mentioned earlier, there was a story in the Portland Press Herald about these guys. And one has already shown up in Bermuda. 2 winters ago, when there was a massive invasion out west, there was a snowy owl that showed up in Honolulu at the airport. And unfortunately, like most airports, they shot it. They shoot them because they're hazards for aviation. But Logan in Boston, they trapped theirs, live trapped them, and moved them. And so Logan is kind of a good example for all the other airports to maybe get a clue and follow. But they could get sucked into a jet engine. Last year, I think 2 owls were killed at Logan with jet strikes. So it is dangerous, but the humane thing is to remove them by trapping them rather than just shooting them in place. But it takes more expertise to do that, and more skill.
Now,
You have to train people.
Fresh data from the Christmas bird count. Folks saw one today on Mackworth Island.
Any sense of how many they're seeing, snowy owls?
Just a couple folks back so far. I asked and the folks who were out of Mackworth Island, just a stone's throw from here.
Question.
Kind of like speed-wise, like how
60.
are 60
They
miles
can do
an
60
hour?
miles an hour.
Wow.
And they can soar, unlike most owls. And